Eros Meets Agape is a bi-weekly heart-to-heart conversation about love, sex, marriage, and relationships. Everyone wants to love and be loved, but everyone does not know how to give and receive the love they both want and need. Intimacy and passion are essential, yet mean nothing if there isn't unconditional and sacrificial love, which is the foundation for any lasting relationship. Dr. Sardia is a licensed marriage and family therapist and minister. Let's listen in as she shares how to create healthier and happier relationships.
Hey there, family. I am so excited to announce that this is the 100th episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. I didn't think I would make it this far, and I'm going to tell you about that. But today is a special episode, and as well, it is also Thanksgiving. So I want to wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving as we go into the 100th episode. So let's head on over into the classroom. I will see you in a second. Hey there, folks. Happy Thanksgiving. In the United States, today we are celebrating Thanksgiving, and it is a day to give thanks. And I think with the past 18 months that we've had and the fact that 2021, we have been let out of quarantine, we are permitted to see loved ones. We are permitted to spend time in the same space with loved ones. This is a very happy Thanksgiving. So to any and everyone who is listening, I want to wish you and your family a very happy Thanksgiving. And I pray that you and your family and your loved ones, that you are spending time together, appreciating the fact that you are together in person and that you had the chance to love on them just at least one more day with love, gathered together, celebrating the holiday, but also celebrating your love for one another. So happy Thanksgiving from me and everyone else at the Eros Meets Agape podcast. We love you and we thank you for listening. Now that we've got that out the way, guess what, you all? We are celebrating the 100th episode. Let me tell you all something. I get it. 100 episodes may not seem like a lot. It's like, okay, you're doing a podcast. Why is this so special? Okay, think of it in TV land. In TV land, when they celebrate the 100th episode, for them it's big because that generally means that they've been on the air for 5 seasons, and that means they have made it into syndication, which means that they are getting royalties for the rest of their lives because they made it that far. All right. I don't have that luxury. However, I am excited that this is the 100th episode. Here's the reason why. I'm going to give you a little backdrop. All right. Imagine it. Sicily, 1922. Here I am. No, just kidding. I don't know why I like saying that. Okay. No, seriously. So some of you may know I started the podcast in January of 2018, right? So we're in the 4th season. And in most podcasts, there is a break in between season 1 and season 2. Whereas, I won't say season 1 and season 2. It's actually all seasons of the podcast. They will take a snippet break, however long that is, and then they'll reconvene. So I'm excited, and this is why. When I first started the podcast, some of you may already know this, I was getting a flux of clients. I had really gotten to the bloom of my private practice. I came out of the agency sector, and I was also teaching, and I was working at 2 agencies and dealing with a lot of different populations, and I was learning a lot. It was great. I would definitely suggest, if you are a budding therapist, I know you want to go to private practice so you can be free and be accountable for yourself, doing your own thing, but really working at an agency is excellent because you get to see everything that can possibly come your way. And then you can decide if this is for you or this is not for you. Is this your target population if you don't already know, or do you need to head in a different direction? So I saw some of everything, and I'm so grateful for the experience. And that was while, I was going through licensure, what have you. So I had segued over into private practice, and I was getting a lot of clients to the place, whereas even a great therapist, they can only handle so many clients per week, which means they can only handle so many clients per year. If I had, let's just say, I'm just being generous here, 300 clients in a year, well, guess what? Do you know how many billions of people live in this world that deal with problems and need to see someone? So my little 300 is but a small drop in the bucket. So what does that mean? It's a lot of people that still need help. And if I'm being, fully transparent, I get a lot of calls where people, they find my name and information, maybe not have looked online to see what I actually look like, but they'll say, hey, are you African American? Because I want someone of the same culture who will understand some of the things that I'm saying because they have experienced it, or at least because they are of the same culture, they get it. And that makes complete sense. And the reason why I say that makes complete sense, I'll give you an example why culture is important in therapy. All right, so I was watching this clip on, I believe it was on Instagram, and Denzel and the actors of, I believe it was the movie Fences, they were being interviewed, and the interviewer asked them, he asked Denzel Washington, why is it important for you to say that it was necessary for the producer of this movie to be African American? Is it about color? And instantly you can tell that person was really trying to start something. But Denzel was smooth and smart and wise about it. He said, no, it's not color, it's culture. And the person said, well, I don't understand. He said, well, let me give you an example. Schindler's List. And I forgot right now who did Schindler's List, but we already know whoever made the movie Schindler's List, they were Jewish. So they understood that history because they shared the same culture. Then they identified a movie by Martin Scorsese. I can't even remember the name of that movie, but I remember the producer. And the point was, Scorsese understands the culture because he was Italian and the movie was about Italians. So Denzel was saying, these people that created these movies, they were of that culture, so they get it. So therefore, when they are doing what they need to do to produce this movie, they are doing it in accordance with what they know to be true of these people experiencing this issue because they are part of that culture. They know what it should look like, what the experience should be. So Denzel gave an example, and he said, for instance, Sunday morning, little girls getting their hair pressed and their mama hits their head and they get burned. Ooh. He said, yeah, I've seen that. I know what that's about. But if you're not of the culture, you wouldn't understand that. Hot press, what's that? So he said it's about culture, things that we'll get because we're of the culture that you may not get. So if I'm trying to portray that in a movie as a producer, because I know the culture, I will understand that. So where am I going with this? So I'm starting this podcast and I'm seeing in the therapy room, there's a lot of misconceptions, misguided beliefs, myths that are in play that were really not benefiting couples and families. And of the couples and individuals that I was working with, African American, just not having a lot of knowledge, because if I'm being honest, stuff gets to us kind of last, okay? When I say kind of last, for example, I'm here in Michigan and I have family in Missouri. And I remember as a kid, I would go to Missouri to visit my family for the summer. And I would be like, seriously, why are you all behind in the times? It seems like I went back in time in order to come here. What is going on? Why don't you have this song on the radio? And they'll be like, what? What are you talking about? Why don't you know this dance? And they'll be like, what are you talking about? Sure enough, it would be time for me to get ready to leave. And that's when the song would now be on the radio, or that's when the dance was now becoming popular. Because Michigan was ahead of Missouri. It was like going back in time. So because of that, they were just behind on stuff. They got a hold of the information, but just a little late. And that's, in my opinion, what happens sometimes with African Americans. We get information, we just get it late. Generally, we tend to get it last. So I'm sitting here with clients and I'm helping them with different things, whatever. And I just really felt like I can only see so many clients. And because of that, there's so many more people out there that I will never see, but who also need help. How can I help them? So of course, I'm sitting back. And if I'm being honest, because this is it, right? This is Confessions of a Therapist. So you are getting the real raw deal here, guys. At the end of 2017, I was very saddened. I was looking at my life and I did not like what I saw. Did I like, and here's where people will sometimes kind of get me confused. They'll say, well, wow, you have a doctorate degree. You should be ecstatic. I should. And I am thankful. Okay. Don't get it wrong. Even though I'm going to talk to you about Confessions of a Therapist, I'm going to definitely bring this back to thankfulness, because you can't stay in a negative state. You always have to look for the best. That's the key. You have to look. When we're not looking, we'll stay in a negative state. So at the end of 2017, I was really sad and my life was not looking how I wanted it to look. I returned home to Michigan from living in Virginia. And because I had come home abruptly, meaning I was graduating from my doctoral program, and I had accepted a position at an agency that was going to train me for dual licensure for my marriage and family therapy license and my LPC license, as well as for sex therapist, to be a certified sex addiction therapist. And I'm sorry, a certified sex therapist, not sex addiction. Okay, so I was going to have 2 licensures and 1 certification. And I also had some other certifications, but they were aiding in that. One of the reasons why I got accepted into the program. And then I was going to teach at Rutgers University. Okay, so I was going to be living in Jersey and working in Jersey and Philly at an agency as well as teaching. Well, if I'm being really honest, I'm being real here, right? So the Lord talked to me and basically asked me to come home. And I'll be honest, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. No, I don't want to go to Michigan. I've done that before. That's not exciting to me. I don't want to do that. And he told me some more things, and I said, okay, I'll go. So that meant I went home without any job prospect, right? Because I was going to New Jersey. I had things set up there. I had nothing set up here in Michigan. So I get home to Michigan. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have my own place because I had signed up for a place in New Jersey. I don't have a place. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have a job. All I have is a doctorate degree. That was the biggest blessing I could have because I learned instantly it has nothing to do with your degree. It's all about who you are and who you are in God. So because of where I was, and where I was not excellent, I realized, shoot, a degree means absolutely nothing because I need a place to stay. I need a vehicle to get back and forth to work. So I had to live with my mom. And me living with my mom, folks, I was grown, good and grown, okay? Like early 40s grown. And I was like, this sucks. I went out for the first time after I come home, and I was going out. It's like maybe 9:30. My mother was like, why are you going out so late? I was like, is she serious? Girl, it is 9:30. What are you talking about late? Okay, nowadays 9:30 is late, but I digress. Okay, so all that to say, I had to really build a life for myself. And at that time, I was in the building phase. And because I was in the building phase, I did not like who I saw in myself. I could have cared less about having a doctorate degree or any other degree that I had. It meant absolutely nothing to me because in the world of therapists, if you are not fully licensed, you are limited to where you can go and what you can do. And it takes approximately 2 years to get your licensure. You have to take your licensure exams, and then you also have to make certain that you fulfill your residency hours. So even with me passing my exam, I still had to complete hours. Hours means time. Time means you can't get it today. So it took about a year and a half. Time differs depending on if you have a doctorate degree in something or a master's degree. If you have a master's degree, it takes you 2 years. They don't allow you to do it in under 2 years. If you have a doctorate degree, you can do it in a year. But I had dual licensure. So I had to go to group supervision for my marriage and family therapy license, and then I had to do supervision for my licensed professional counselor license. So I had to do everything twice, even though I could use the same hours for both for residency. All right, so all that to say, I was going nowhere very slowly, and it was just very saddening for me. And I remember talking with my good friend Carmen, hey girl, and she was like, look here, I understand where you are, but you have to look at it this way. I get it. You were not supposed to be here, but since God wanted you to be there and you agreed, make the most and best from this time. Create a plan and stick to your plan. Plans don't come to pass overnight. So write out a great plan and stick to your plan until it comes to pass. And shout out to Carmen because it got my wheels to spinning. I created a plan for where I wanted to be mentally, emotionally, professionally, spiritually, and financially. I was working on socially and relationally. I wasn't there yet. I needed to get in the right headspace before I could head in those areas. And I stuck to the plan. I created the plan and I stuck to the plan. Did it take some time? It took some years, yes. But at the end of 2017, I made the decision that instead of me being stuck in myself, I needed to plant a seed in somebody else, which means when I go to work, sure, I'm going to do my job and do that 100%, but I can't really plant a seed at, in my opinion, where I'm working, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be planting and depositing you because that's my job. So I needed to do something outside of my work hours. Thus, I started thinking and said, well, wait a minute. I could do a podcast, because over time I would have listeners and I could help these listeners, people who I would never see inside of the therapy room. So that's how the Eros Meets Agape podcast was born. I was upset. I can't say I was depressed, but I was really saddened with my life at that time. And I made the decision to pour into other people that I probably would never see, but would pray that I could help them and benefit them in some kind of way. So the podcast is born. Now, at the end of season 1, my producer says, okay, well, what do we have geared for season 2? And I was like, oh, I'm not doing a season 2. That was it. We're done. She said, what? She's like, Sadia, no, you can't do that. You can't start a podcast and then you get it going and then you end it. And I was thinking, like, what's the big deal? I don't understand. I said I wanted to do a podcast. I did this for an entire year. It wasn't like I stopped in like August or September and like, okay, see you in January. No, started in January, wrote all the way through to the end of the year. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I did a full year, 26 episodes. Are you kidding me? And she's like, no, you got to keep going. You at least got to give it 2 seasons. So I said, okay, fine. So at the end of season 2, I'm like, whoa, girl. All right. We had a good run. That was nice. And she's like, I think you need to give this another try here. You're now gaining on listeners. You have a certain number of downloads a month, which means that you're getting 2 or 3 times as much as that with people that are just streaming these episodes and not downloading them. So I think you need to build on that momentum, because this thing here is going to eventually take you somewhere else. And I was just like, oh my gosh. All right, fine. I'll do another season. And so season 3 comes, and season 3, my old producer is gone, and I have my sister that's helping me with the editing. And so finally I was like, let me just pray on it. Yeah, I prayed on it. And here I am thinking I was going to be done at the end of season 3. And the Lord said, no, you're going to go all the way through. And I said, all the way through. So guys, I'm giving you insider information. And the first announcement, Lord told me, I want you to go all the way through season 5. We're in season 4 right now. We're at the end of season 4. Season 5 will be my last year of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. So come December 31st, 2022, I will be airing the last episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. But I'm not ending what I'm doing. I'm just transitioning over. So many of you probably already know that I'm on Clubhouse and I'm not there every week. That will be changing. I'm not trying to be sketchy, but when I say I have a ridiculously tight schedule, teaching at 2 universities, private practice, my coaching business, and then me starting this group, I just got signed on at a publishing company. So I'm working on a book. I started building my private practice, of course, but I've worked on now building a group practice. So when I say I am kind of busy, I seriously mean it. So I mean to be in Clubhouse every single week, but I have not been successful in doing so. Yet I'm changing that immediately. Starting this holiday season, I am there every Sunday, 7:30 Eastern Standard Time, and it's for the purposes in really building women or men, if they want to join us, in honoring self-love. So I really call it my selfie series, because it's all about building up certain things within ourselves, and it's the 4 pillars of self-image, self-esteem, self-respect, and self-worth. And all of that together is really caring for yourself, your self-care. That's the selfie series. So it's really sisterly support. We're talking and helping one another through different relationship situations. Yes, you honestly get to have me there as a therapist, not telling you what to do, not counseling you, but definitely giving you some help that maybe a best friend or someone else might not be able to give, because I know a little bit more in certain areas just because of my experience and education there. But we really get to be a group of support to one another. And of course, I'm going to mix Jesus in everything. So I'm going to also tell you what the word says about it. All right. So that's that. So me being on Clubhouse and starting to do that, right? So I'll be heading over to definitely build this group as the podcast ends. But this is the 100th episode, so it's something to celebrate. It's exciting. And by the time we finish the podcast, I'll be announcing some other things that are coming in play, that are happening, that I will be excited to share with you at the end of season 5, as we say our goodbye, so to speak. But in sharing with you all about this information and what's going on, this is the reason why I wanted to start the podcast. I wanted to help other people. And when I tell you guys, when someone DMs me or when someone emails me or someone actually calls my practice because, hey, I was listening to your podcast, or I'm sitting with a new client, and I always ask my clients, where did they, hear about me? One, I have to track that information, right? Business-wise, I have to know, okay, am I putting my money in the right place when it comes to being advertised as a therapist, right? So I'm looking for that purpose, and they'll say, oh, I was listening to your podcast. I'm like, oh, wow, that's such a blessing. So all of that together, when I'm looking at it as far as the reasons for why we got started, it was really to help people and to listen to people, like I said, through these phone calls or emails or direct messages or with new clients. It's exciting because it means I'm not out here talking to dead air, right? When you're doing a podcast, it's just you in that room by yourself. And to know that there are listeners that are really listening, not just hearing me, but really listening to what I'm saying, it's really an honor, and it's a privilege to be able to share with you and to come into your cars and your homes and your offices to sit and talk with you about various things that are helpful to not just people of color, but for everyone who could be grappling with, any issue individually or within their relationship. So that's why the podcast was started. And even though I wanted to end at season 1, here we are at the end, or approaching the end of season 4. And I will be with you guys all the way through next year, through season 5. So, I've already said it. I'm going to tell you more in another episode, which is going to be a sneak peek into season 5. And it's going to give you some great insight for what we're doing. Catch us on Instagram right now. I am doing a giveaway. So if you're interested in winning a prize or two, head on over to Instagram, answer the question of the day, and you will be able to possibly win a prize. And I'll DM you for your contact information in order to send you your prize. All right. So that's why the podcast was started. So now going back into Confessions of a Therapist. All right. So I am starting out as a counselor. And when I first started out, I wish I could say I still look young, but I don't. When I say young, I'd just be happy if somebody said I look 30. But I digress. So when I first started when I first started counseling, my area is relationships and marriages, right? So that is a lot of what my intake coordinator at the agencies that I worked at, that's the type of clients that they would give me. So I would have people sitting with me, and I kid you not, folks, I kid you not. People would say to me, well, you look kind of young. What do you know about marriage? Okay, fair enough question. And I would give them my background. Oh, okay, well, I have a PhD in professional counseling. My dissertation is on, couples, marriages. All of my papers that I had to do in all 23 of those courses are some way, shape, or form related to marriage or family. My master's program, I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy. So everything I did was on couples. So I've read a number of things. I know the research that's out there. I know what works, what doesn't work based off of the research, the books and the articles that I've read. So I'm giving them my resume in essence, right? But then the follow-up question is, are you married? Now, I have never been offended by that question, but remember, real talk, Confessions of a Therapist. That's my struggle area. I'm going to talk to you about that in a minute. Let me go back to this point. So when they would ask if I was married, I never directly answer the question right after they ask me. Did I just skirt the question? Not at all, because I'm not ashamed of my marital status. But I needed to know why they were asking the question. And I would also ask them that. So why do you ask? Well, we're here, for counseling purposes for our marriage. And if you aren't married, how can you help us? I would yet again remind them, I just gave you my resume. That's how I can help you. So let me explain a couple of things. No, I'm not married at the present time. However, if I were, me and my husband would have nothing to do with how well I can counsel you and your spouse. And that's because the husband would sometimes ask me and the wife would sometimes ask me. Then they would look at me with a little look like snarky, like, is she getting, a little bit, smart with us? And that wasn't the point. And I would say, well, let me explain. Me and my husband, right, if I'm married, we would come from different backgrounds, educations, experiences, and all of this together, our childhood, our development, our parents, all of these relationships and experiences and education would then shape how I am seeing myself and how I'm being loved, thus affecting me in my relationship. That has nothing to do with you and your relationship, because you're going to be different from me based off of your education, background, history, experiences, childhood development, parental guidance. All of that is going to be different. So therefore, even if I were married, there is nothing that me and my marriage could do for you, because whatever works for me and my spouse, that's us based off of who we are as a couple and who we are individually. It may not work for you. So sure, I could give you information, but we don't know if that information is going to work. That's like saying, oh, okay, you have a headache. Well, try this lemon, because lemons work for me. Well, is there any research on lemons working? No. So why would I give that to you thinking it would work for you just because it worked for me? That's not how couples counseling goes. So when I would explain that to people, they would say, oh, okay, but here's where I will really get them, folks. Listen up. All right, so I would say, okay, let me give it to you in plainer sense. This is going to hit home a lot better. If you were dying of cancer, and because you were dying of cancer, you knew you didn't have much time, right? So because you're experiencing stage 4 cancer and you know you're dying and you wanted help, would you go to your best friend who had the exact same cancer as you, went to the exact same stage as you, and even at stage 4, your friend recovered? Or would you go to an oncologist, which is a physician who is trained to treat those that are suffering from cancer? Would you want your best friend to help you and tell you everything that they did in order to overcome their cancer and to tell you to do the same? Or would you want an oncologist, someone who has trained in medical school, has read a whole bunch of articles, books about this, and has seen a number of patients, knows what works, has researched this information, and from their experience, they know what to do to tell you? Every single client that I have, they all say, oh, I want the oncologist. And I'm like, really? Well, why? They look at me like I'm stupid because they're trained. My life is on the line. So therefore, I'm going to choose the person who has this history and this is their area of expertise. And that's when I look at them and say, got them. Because I'll say, well, why then would you ask me about being married? Because if you're asking me from a friend point of view. You want to do what I do in the hopes that it works for you. But you didn't select the best friend helping you with your cancer. You chose the oncologist, the person that's trained. So therefore, when you come to me as a therapist or someone else, whether they are married or single, you are seeking them for their knowledge, their expertise, and their wisdom in this area of which they say that this is the area of which they are trained and skilled to help you. After that, we don't have any problems. But I will literally say probably the first maybe 2 or 3 years, I can't really recall now. It might have been the first 2 or 3 years, and I'm mixing my residency as well as my internship phase in this period. So I would say by the time I got into the first year and a half of actually working at an agency, I didn't have that question. When I worked in my private practice, no one ever asked me that. By that time, I would say, people looked up information about you on your website or, at the agency where I worked at, and they saw my resume basically. And so they had a little more faith in me. And then just by opening up the door for questions in the initial session or intake session, people feel comfortable because I'm very real with my clients. I tell them, this is what I'm going to tell you. Based off of the information that you give me, I'm going to tell you whether or not this is going to work and whether or not I am a good fit for you. I'm going to tell you this because of the style in which I work, my personality and how I work, and you have to see if this is going to be a good fit for you. When you're shopping for a therapist, folks, you want to make certain that they aren't just skilled and trained in that area, but that you are a good fit for one another. What does that mean, being a good fit? All right. So if I am looking for someone to work with, let's just say I'm training for the Olympics, right? Not only does this person need to know what they're doing, but we have to work well together, right? So for instance, I just got through watching King Richard. I love that movie. It's a great movie. And if you haven't seen it, go out and watch it. Or watch it on HBO Max if it's still available. So I'm watching the movie, and I can't remember the trainer now, but basically Serena and Venus's father got them a trainer in Florida. He had his own compound basically and did a whole bunch of stuff for his, I don't know what you call them, proteges. But when they worked with him, he was a kind, loving, and nice man. He believed in balance, but also hard work. And it seemed as if the people that worked with him, that were training on him, they actually liked him as well as loved him. Why? That was a good fit. That helped them to work well together. They could trust that. Most people who are training for something, they have a coach that they like as well as a coach that they trust and that they know will do their job. Same thing with a therapist. You want someone who is trained in the area for which you are seeking help, and you want to be able to like them because they're going to have some hard days with you. And if you don't like them, you're going to take it personally. But if you like them as a person, as an individual, as well as a therapist, when they give you those hard conversations and those hard moments, you'll be okay with it because you know it's coming from a place of honesty and love, not from criticism and judgment, okay? So early on in my career, people would ask me that question, and it would really be quite annoying. Yet again, confessions of a therapist. Remember I told you I have a struggle area. It is not cute, all right? I'm just being completely honest. To me, it is not cute getting up, going to work every single day of my life, helping people with their relationship problems. And yet I come home to myself. All right. Now, am I depressed about it? No. Do I sometimes get sad about it? Most definitely. Here's the reason why. The majority of my friends are married with children or they have children. All right. So being honest, remember, I know I keep saying this, but it's a disclaimer, right? Confessions of a therapist, real talk. So I knew my personality early on. And when you know yourself, you don't put yourself in positions that are going to not, how should I say this? That won't be good for you. Okay. So early on, and no disrespect to anyone out there who has experienced this scenario, but I knew I did not have the personality to be someone's baby mama. All right. This is what I mean by that. When I was younger, I won't say I was hot-headed, but I had a mouth on me. And when I say I had a mouth, I was not a cursor. All right. I'll be honest. I have cursed, but I was a person, if I cursed, I have went through about 20 other levels that I have totally not even engaged in or bypassed. So this here, I'm really blown up, upset. Okay. So I wouldn't curse people out as far as with curse words. But my mouth can make you feel so bad about yourself that it was not good. All right. When I say I'm not proud of this, guys, I have been young and I have went off on bosses. In my opinion, I felt like I can get me another job. I don't need you. Not proud of it. Not bragging, but yes, I come from a family that has mouths. All right. I had one. And I knew if I was somebody's baby mama, that means we were not together. We were just raising this child together because I was going to make certain if I got in that position that I was going to pick somebody that was going to be there for his child. So, but I also knew if we weren't together, he was going to be with somebody. And women that are young, especially Black women, we can sometimes try to use that as a trump card. And I knew, I'm going to go off on your future somebody because she's going to lose her mind in how she may try to talk to me. And I'm going to have to put her in her place that is not going to be great for her. Then she's going to come to you and you're going to come to me, and then I'm going to have to go off on you as well. And this is not good for my baby. And since it's not good for my baby in this light, as well as seeing his or her parents in a negative light, fussing at one another, and then shuffling off to doing all types of different things based off of different childhoods, meaning you have one set of rules in my house and another set of rules in daddy's house, right? And then me needing to come together with this man in agreement with what type of school I want baby to go to and what types of things I want baby to be involved in. I knew it was going to pop off. So I knew I could not be in that position, but also I took a little too much pride in myself, if I'm being honest, because I felt like I'm better than you being associated to me for the rest of my life, but not good enough to be with me for the rest of my life. Now I get it. In marriage, there's a 50-50 chance that someone will leave or stay. It's just a decision. But when somebody tells you from the beginning they're not trying to be with you, well, guess what? It's a 100% shot that they're not going to be there. And I felt like I deserved more than that. So because of that, I knew I was not going to be a good baby mama. And I knew I could never put myself in a position for that. So therefore, I could not have a child out of wedlock because I did not want to be a baby mama. So I had to wait on my husband to actually be married. All right. More confessions of a therapist, folks, giving you the background information. And I'm going to use this to lay the foundation, not just about me, but I'm laying the foundation so you understand what therapists sometimes are going through or thinking about, different things like that. All right. So we already know my baby mama situations and how that cannot be me. So now I'm waiting on a spouse. All right. Another case in point. Many of you probably already know I'm a licensed minister. So there's a certain lifestyle that goes along with that I'm in 100% agreement with. I just can't randomly do people. That's just not me. Never has been me, never will be me. And so because of that, I believe waiting for marriage in order to have sex. That's me. Doesn't have to be you, although I think it needs to be many of us, if not all. All right. But that's my point. So because of that, I just couldn't just go hook up with somebody. I'm believing in God for my husband. So many people will make the mistake, especially a lot of young people, people in their 20s, sometimes early 30s, depending on their childhood and their frame of mind. Many people will make the mistake of making a laundry list of things that are necessary in order to have in a potential maiden spouse. I've said this before on other episodes. Sometimes people make these lists, folks, that even Jesus probably would struggle to fulfill or understand why they're on the list like this, to this degree. People have I've just known people that have put like 40, 50, 100 things on their list. And I get it. They're all important. But when you're a therapist, you help people to be realistic. What does that mean? Do we reduce the list so you're settling? By all means, no. But having 40 or 50 things on the list, is it realistic? No. It's not a Christmas wish list. So we condense it because some things are similar, which means it's the same. And then we see, do you really want that? Or is that icing on the cake? Difference between needs and wants. You all hear me talk about that all the time. And we just have to learn the difference. Is it a need or is it a want? Most people who have a laundry list of items and what they want to make, they are mixing both needs and wants. It's okay to have wants. Nothing wrong with that. But if I don't get it, then guess what? I'm still going to be happy because my needs are fulfilled. The wants are extra. So most times, I am mainly helping people to assess what it is they want in an individual. So case in point with me. So I have actually had 4 people, I use this term loosely, propose to me. Okay. When I say propose, I have had 0 of those 4 to actually go on bended knee, pull a ring out, will you marry me? And then I've said no. That has never happened, all right? We don't do that. If a man is going on bended knee, it's generally because he really believes after many discussions, this woman is going to say yes. Now, he's always a little bit scared, like, oh, she still could say no, but he goes for it anyway, right? All right, so I've had no one to go on bended knee. However, college boyfriend, he was so sweet. I mean, we were really great friends loved and adored him, but not to the extent of being married to him. I just could not love him in that way. I tried so very hard. I prayed on it, asked Jesus, please change my heart, because this is a good man. But how many of us have learned that there's a difference between someone who is a good guy for you and a good guy in general, right? So he was a good guy, but not a good guy for me. And I believe it was just based off of where God was leading me in my life and how that may have been different, or what God would have called me to do. Because at the time, I didn't know I was going to be a minister, right? And this guy was totally in agreement with no premarital sex. But in the same sense, I just could not fall for him to the degree in which he loved me. And I believe he's still married. Last time we talked to one another, he was married. I want to say that was like maybe 15 years into his marriage, maybe. I don't recall, but he's still married, right? So, but he did make it clear, because I wanted to go to Disney World. And I was like, babe, I want to go to Disney World. And he was like, Sadia, if I take you to Disney World, I'm proposing. Now, I have a little confession to make. I'm a little spoiled. So I am blessed that the men that I date, they will spoil me. Meaning, if I say I want something, they will do it up in order to make it happen. So he knew that I love Disney World. Yes, I'm grown, still grown to love Disney World. Even at that time, I loved Disney World. And he knew I loved Disney World. And so he was like, look, if I take you to Disney World, I want to get married. And I want to get married to you. And if I take you to Disney World, I'm doing the whole nine. I'm proposing with the princess cut ring that you love. I am bringing the horse and carriage out. I am doing it up. Now, part of me, you all stopped and said, ooh, okay. Oh, this is a tough choice, because that is going to be a phenomenal moment there that I would just adore. That would be so memorable that I'm like, let me tell my kids how your dad proposed to me. And I would have just loved that. But as I came back down to earth and got a hold of my senses, I had to recall, you don't love him in the way that he loves you. And that is a big disservice to him. And that will be very hurtful if you put him in that kind of position. And you don't ever want to make someone feel like that. So I had to tell him in that conversation, no, we can't do this. So that's the first one, right? So then there's, oh yeah. I had to remember for a second. All right. So then it was a guy, we never even dated. We were cool. We hung out, he liked me, but we never really dated. I was in school. He was grown and working. No, folks, nothing perverted. I was in college. He was maybe 28. I'm like, 22. So there was nothing wrong with the age there. We were just on different paths, but we were cool. We were great friends. We hung out together. And one day he just called me and said, all right, so look, and he was always very matter of fact and blunt. And he was like, hey, look, so I want to get married, and I want to get married to you. I think you'll make a great wife. So I'm going to go off for about 6 months, because I know how you love Jesus. You love the Lord. So I'm going to go off for about 6 months, getting to church, getting the word, because I believe the male needs to be the head. And so I need to start getting in the word so I can meet you in the word. I don't need you leading us. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to propose to you. But I also need to take this time to tell my baby mama we're not going to be together. Now, I don't know if him and his baby mom was on and off again or not. But clearly, if he had to tell her we're never going to be together, I'm about to marry this other chick, something had to have been going on there. But he and I never dated, so it wasn't as if I cared or I was doing something to ruin somebody's home. So that being said, I had to tell him, look, no, I think you're a great guy. But just because I look good on paper does not mean that I will be good for you. Remember my point I said before, just because someone is a good person doesn't mean they're the good person for you. It's a difference. Everything can look great on paper, but then when you get together, it's like, wait a minute, why isn't this working? It's because they weren't meant for you. And I had to be honest and tell him, we're not even dating. What do we do? I want to go get ice cream, guys. I want to go get ice cream. I loved ice cream. I could eat ice cream year round. Made no difference for me. I remember one time I told my best friend, we were both in school, and I was like, girl, after school today, let's stop. When I say school, is in college, folks, okay? I'm in my residency program for my master's, and she's getting her bachelor's, and we would drive up to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where we both went to school. And I was like, let's go get some ice cream from Dairy Queen on the way home. She's like, girl, it's wintertime. I'm like, what does that have to do with the tea in China? It has nothing to do with it. I want some ice cream. You're going to have some ice cream. And then she started liking ice cream in the wintertime too. But anyhow, I digress yet again. So my point is, the guy, we were going out one day and I was like, let's go get some ice cream. He was like, we're not going to get any ice cream. And I was like, why not? I want some ice cream. And he was like, that's for people who are in love. So I had to remind him of that. I was like, remember, I couldn't even go get ice cream because you said that's for people who are in love. And now you here talking to me about getting married. This isn't adding up. This doesn't match. You just want to get married and I look good on paper. So you want to pick me. But that's not the way we get married. We'll be in divorce court sooner before we can realize it. So that was the second person I had to say no to. Now, the third person, I actually had a great relationship with him, loved him. He was really wonderful. But without going into details, we broke up because he just had some things he had to work on. I'm not going to put his business out there. So he had some things he had to work on. And when he decided he was ready to return, I was fine with that. I am big on, listen, this is important. All right. This is a side note, a nugget that you need to grasp, in my opinion. I think you need to grasp. Many times we make decisions on not wanting to be with someone because we have been previously hurt or we don't want to look stupid to other people. At the end of the day, it has nothing to do with other people. It has everything to do with, are you happy and what do you want? So I'll give you an example. I have a lot of male friends that tends to die off as people get older because you don't need to be first in their life after they get married. That's their wife's spot, right? Your spot was replaced by the spouse, right? So I had this male friend and he called me one day and was like, hey, I need to talk. Meet me up at such and such place so we can chat. And I'm like, all right. So I finally get there. We're shooting pool, talking or what have you. And he's like, so look, I'm ready to get married. Now, hold up. He's not telling me this because he wants to put me in the pot, all right? I am his female friend. You know, most males have a female friend. That is their place of wisdom, balance for them. And I was that person for him. So he says, you know, I'm ready to get married. And I'm deciding between two people. I'm deciding between my old girlfriend and my current girlfriend. And I was like, I'm confused. Why does the current girlfriend have a opponent, basically? And he was like, well, because I love my old girlfriend, but my family would make so much fun of her saying that, you know, with the way she looked, that our kids would be ugly. And I don't want ugly kids. So I broke up with her, but I really loved her and wanted to be with her. I just didn't think my family would have accepted her. And I was like, dude, your family will accept whomever you choose. But you also have to let that be known. This is who I choose, and I need you all to accept her. You have to put down your foot, okay? Now, he thought about it, and he was just like, but, you know, she isn't the most attractive woman. I said, forget about that. Do you love her? Because if that's who you love and that's what your heart wants, then that's where you need to be. Looks over time are going to dissipate with anybody. So what difference does it make? If you were attracted to her and you are still attracted to her and you love her, that's who you need to be with. It was like, well, see, the current girl, she's pretty. She's just not nice. And I was like, look here. Nice is going to be, not being nice is going to be a problem for you later. And he was like, but she looks nice and don't nobody complain. He kept going on and on about his family and them talking about looks or what have you. I'm sure you all can guess. He chose the person that looked the prettiest, but wasn't the nicest. Let's just say that relationship, let's just say there's not much positivity there. In my opinion, he should have chose the other girl because he would have been happy and the family would have got along with it because they already loved the girl. They just didn't think she was the prettiest woman in the world, but who cares? Nevertheless, what is my point? This person that I am dating, right? He goes on this break. And when I say break, we broke up and because he had to get some things together. And as I said, people have to make decisions that are best for them, not best for other people. So in my example, my friend was making a decision that was best for his family, not for him. And unfortunately, over years, he's had to pay the price for that. Whereas I'm a person, if that's what your heart wants and it is a good thing for you, okay, so if your heart wants crack, crack isn't good for you. So no, don't indulge in that, right? But if it's good for you, but you are questioning whether or not other people will be in agreement or how it will make you look, if they love you, sure, they'll have a talk with you to see where you are, but they'll support you regardless. And you have to know what's healthy for your heart and what's not. So when we're making decisions, so for me, for instance, with this guy, he had his stuff he had to work on. And I was like, okay, if you come back and, I'm available, we'll see. Right? You don't close off the door like, oh my gosh, you broke up with me and I'm never going to talk to you again because you hurt me. I've had a couple of people to do that. I told you about both, right? If they present themselves and you still have something in your heart for them and you believe that you all would be a good fit, or especially if you believe the Lord would be okay with it, why not give it a shot? Forget about all these other people. You have to live your life. You can't be living the life that other people may want you to have. You need to go to bed happy. You don't need to go to bed wondering if I should have, would have, could have, I should have did this. No, you don't need to do that. You need to do what it is that you believe is right for you. All right. And that may not be what other people see as being right for you. All right. So this guy, he goes off, does his own thing. And while he's out doing his own thing, I was not in agreement with the results of that. So because of it, when he returned, I had to be honest. I was like, no, I'm not that mature. And so because I'm not that mature, I'm going to have to take a hard pass, because he had called me up one day at work. I was at work. And when I'm in work mode, let's just say common sense just go out the door sometimes, because I am laser focused. So he was like, hey, now let's just say it was, I don't know, it might have been, I can't remember now if it was 2005, 2006. I can't remember. It wasn't 2007. It might have been early 2006. I don't recall. It was before 2007. Okay. So he says, what are you doing July 7th, 2007? My dumb self looks to the calendar at my desk and I'm flipping. I'm like, right. Notice I didn't say on my phone, right? Because we were not that savvy with iPhones and Androids and all that kind of stuff. So I look at the calendar on my phone and I'm like, wait a minute. I don't have anything. Then I thought about it. I was like, that's over a year away from now. Why are you asking me that? And he was like, I think that would be a great day for us to get married. Sweet. So very sweet. And he gave his reasons for why he thought that would be great, why he thought I was a beautiful woman to marry, why he wanted to marry me, what he had been doing over this period where we were not together, and how he's made some mistakes, but he sees clearly now. Now, I am not of the mindset of, oh, so you go out and do these things and now you come to your senses and you want to be with me. I don't look at it like that. I look at it as, is this what my heart wants? And my heart was just not that mature. And I had some other revelations. And as a result, I was like, nah, I can't do this. But that was the third one. The fourth one came along, and these are not in any particular order. Okay. I want people listening, like trying to add up, like, is that so-and-so? Is that so-and-so? So the fourth guy, he pretty much wasn't like, I want you to marry me. Okay. He was basically like, I want you to be the mother of my kids. I can see us being married. But in my opinion, my personal opinion, he had issues with how other people saw me, meaning, how can I explain this? In my opinion, I believe someone in his life did not approve of me being with him. And he valued that person's opinion so very much that he used that above his own heart. And I say that because he had just made a number of statements to me that was pretty much saying, we could do this and wouldn't nobody have anything to say about it, because we're grown and we can do what we want to do. And if we go and get married, they wouldn't be able to say anything. And I'm like, who are they? Why are they getting the vote? This makes no sense whatsoever. But that was him. But that was his heart. That's what he wanted to do, but he didn't allow himself to do it. That was the fourth person. All right. Going back to my point in being married as a therapist, right? Confessions of a therapist. It is a desire of mine to be married and actually have children. At my age, well, let's just say we leave that at the altar for a prayer for Jesus. And I've had to really come to terms with my life and what I wanted and the life and what I have. And there have been some strong struggles. When I say strong struggles, when I am counseling, remember, your counselor, they have their own stuff that they're dealing with that they do not allow to cross the threshold of that door when they get into session. Now, there's a term in counseling that's called counter-transference. Okay? What is that? Transference is when a client see something in their therapist that reminds them of their own world. Okay. So in essence, they're being triggered by their therapist. Unknowingly, the therapist has no clue until the client says it. Countertransference is when the therapist is triggered by their clients with stuff that they're dealing with or have not dealt with. All right. So it's no secret. I've told you all my confessions of a therapist, and also I've probably said in other episodes because I'm not ashamed of my stuff. I still want to be married and honestly still want to have children. At my age, do I believe or know that that is possible for me? Like I said, that is a prayer request that is on the altar. It is interesting. I've met people. Matter of fact, I was talking to this one guy. He said to me, "You still want kids at your age?" I didn't say anything. But I also met someone that said, this was some years ago when I'm telling you about these conversations. I also met someone that said, "Well, can we have two? Because I want two more." I thought that was the sweetest thing. Oh, I forgot about that guy, you all. Okay. That was guy number 5. I forget about guy number 5 because we weren't together. He just believed I was his wife and we should get married. And I've had that happen to me before a few times. It has, in my opinion, has nothing to do with me. I'm not that great of a person. I really believe it is the anointing on me. So let me digress on that point and I'll come back to it. I pray I remember. So getting back to the countertransference. I come to work every day helping other people with their problems. The majority of the problems that I help people with are issues that they are having with someone else in a relationship, or as far as a romantic relationship, a marriage. I rarely work with people that are dealing with problems with their kids. That happens, but that's a small percentage of the clients that I see. That's my family counseling. And that's about, I would say maybe 10, 13% tops. Where do I come up with these numbers? In my head, folks, in my head. Stay with me. So that's a small percentage. But if I see individuals, probably about maybe 35% of my practice, and I'm dealing with individuals on how they are dealing with the aftermath of relationship, meaning that person is no longer in their life because they broke up, or that person passed away, or because they're no longer talking to those people and they have no idea why. So they're dealing with, these feelings that come as a result of problematic relationships. And then the majority of the people, I say over 60% of my practice, is dealing with couples and their issues. And it's a lot of times where I'm sitting there with my clients and I'm honest. I'll tell my clients, do you know how many people out here wish they had this problem or wish that they had someone? And I'll tell them, me, I'm one of them. Now, I don't try to invalidate their emotions or their experiences. That is never something that we should do. Never do that if you're a therapist, of course. And I don't do that. But I try to put things in perspective because remember, we're talking about confessions of a therapist, but there's also a thankfulness in there. And I try to help people to see that regardless of what it is you're dealing with, there's always something to be thankful and grateful for. And if you put your mind on the positive, you will tend to let go of the negative. And I told you all this before. The way that the brain remembers, the reason why couples tend to seem to not remember the good stuff is because they're so focused on the bad stuff. So imagine you have a filing cabinet that, is not the in horizontal width, but it is a vertical cabinet. So there's depth, not width or length, right? So you have this vertical single file cabinet. You open up the drawer and you have the file in the front and it goes all the way to the back. Imagine your brain like that. So when it comes to content and information, your brain is going to remember the things that are in the front, right? That's the things that's prominent and they're most prevalent than anything else. The way that the brain works is for every negative incident in your relationship, you need 5 positive incidences to override the negative. Those 5 positive things that are done after the one negative thing helps the brain to push that negative thing to the back, okay? People can't generally tend to focus on the positive because they spend too much time on the negative. So therefore, if I don't put those 5 positive things in front to replace that negative, then that means I keep building up all my negatives. So now if I have 2 negative things that happens, I need 10 positive things. Now, if I have 4 negative things that happen, I need 20 positive things. So now if I had 10 negative things that happens, I need 50 positive things. Do you see how that adds up? So when you don't put the positives there, you're always behind. So therefore, if you're always behind, you're always in the negative, always in the rear, thus seemingly focusing on the negative. And it's because you don't have anything positive to replace it, or you can't see it because it's so far buried up under the negative. So when I'm talking to my clients and I'm being honest with them, I'll tell them that they have to be appreciative and thankful for the good things and focus on the good. And if you spend enough time looking at the good, the bad begins to dissipate. So going back, Confessions of a Therapist. It's difficult at times sitting with my clients and realizing, wow, you get to go home every day with biceps and triceps. Provider. That's nice. That's really nice. I am just so proud of you. This is nice. But then I also keep in mind that, guess what? I'm not experiencing marital issues. I get to go home happy, right? When I eat, everybody's full. When I'm sleepy, everybody goes to bed. When I want to go somewhere, everybody wants to go somewhere. Is it a good side to being single? It most definitely is. Is there a downside to not being married? Yeah, it is. But I have to keep things in perspective. So even though I have my own struggles and what I'm believing God for and what I want, I have to keep in mind this is where God called me to be. And if I'm being 1,000% transparent, I would never trade what I'm doing for a spouse. So let's just say, I don't know, fairy godmother or something comes along and says, in this hand I have your husband, and in this hand you have your career, and I could give you your husband, but things would change in your career and life, or you can keep what you have. 100% I would keep what I have. Why? Is it because I don't want to be married? Absolutely not. But it has everything to do with the fact that I adore, love, absolutely cherish what I do. I love being able to deposit love in other people. And if you know me and my family, we do not come from a lineage of great exposure to love. And when I say exposure, some households you walk into and you can just see the love oozing from every person. Now, I got that from my dad. My mom has learned to grow in her love and ability to show and express that verbally. She's more so of a provisional person, and you see that in the things that she'll do for you. Whereas my dad was just lovey all the time. There was nothing that I could say or do that would make him happy. He was just always, give me a hug, give me a kiss. I love you. You're the greatest. He was just that person. And so because there was this balance, I was able to, be even in that regard. But, I talk about attachment a lot on the show. So I haven't always known secure attachment. I had to build towards earned secure attachment and seeing how I viewed love for me as well as from other people. So because of that, love wasn't something that was just oozing from my household. I remember my grandmother, I would tell my grandmother, I loved her all the time. I remember one day my grandmother said to me, I love you, right, Sadia? And I was like, yeah, Grandma, I know you love me. And she would say, when I was growing up, we didn't do that. My parents didn't tell us that they loved us all the time. We knew it, but we were focused on other things. And that wasn't something that we really learned to do. And I get it. My grandmother, she was born in 1919. Her parents were born in the 1800s. My great-grandfather was a gypsy. He can't remember if it was 10 or 11 siblings, or if he was one of 11. He couldn't remember that. He just knew it was 10 or 11 of them. And he got sold from his family. So he never saw them again. And so he moved around a lot, did very well for himself, grew up raising his family. He was a chauffeur for, the man was Mr. Greasy. Make a long story short, my grandfather was a chauffeur to the owners of Anheuser-Busch, which prior to being bought by Anheuser-Busch was identified as the Greasy family. So, honestly, my family lived well. As a chauffeur back in that day was a good job. And he was able to raise my grandmother well. But My point is to say my grandmother, my family, they were not very expressive of love. So by God calling me to be in a position to counsel people and help them with their love and their expression of love, I enjoy what I do. I love being in that position. I love showing people and teaching people how to love each other healthily. I truly love that. And I am glad that God has gifted me with that ability. But I know it's not me, and it's the anointing on me. And that's probably the reason why some people have felt I was their wife. I believe that was just that love anointing on me. And they saw that, not necessarily being me. And then when I'm working with people, it comes out in full force. The anointing comes over me very strongly, that I'm able to see certain things about the individual or the couple, and it guides me in how I'm counseling them. And it's so much of a blessing. I believe it's one of the reasons why God has me starting the group No Dessert Before Dinner. I've talked about it on a few other episodes. And why it's about a self-love journey. It's because that's just the gifting area where he has given me. So if I had to give that up just to have a husband, don't get me wrong, I absolutely want to be married. I'm looking forward to it. I know that is a blessing that God has for me, just has not yet arrived. But I wouldn't trade it for what I do, because this is what I am purposed and called and assigned to do. And it is a blessing that allows me to be so helpful to others. But confessions of a therapist, all right? There are days as a therapist as well as a teacher, because you all know I teach as well, that I'm being honest, right? When I'm honest with my clients and my students, I tell them, I give them examples, my students, of what happens out in the field. And I have to be honest, because there are going to be writers. They're writing notes. They may go to court, different things like that. I have to be honest with them. I'm hard on them. I most definitely am very hard on them. Why? Because in the times in which we live and what they're called to do, someone is putting their life in your hands to help them. And to me, it is not just another class. You didn't go to school for math or for writing. You are going to school for being a counselor, where you are helping someone to overcome their problems. So yes, I am hard on my students, but I give them tough love. I give them love, but it's tough love at times, because they need to know this is serious. You're not just whizzing through these classes to get a degree. You are whizzing through these classes. Yes, it goes fast, but I want you to absorb everything that you need to absorb, because you will be called upon one day to help someone. And if I just allow you to whiz through and not grasp any of the content, I'm doing you a disservice to the future person that will be sitting before you. And for my clients, when I'm honest with them, I'm truthful in the fact that this is what you have, that is a gift, and the gift of love. And you are abusing that by not honoring the love that you have. And I try to express that to people. But there's days that people just don't like me because I'm truthful and I'm making them see themselves. And when people get upset, it hurts my feelings. It hurts me very much that when I'm honest with someone, that they don't see that honesty as love, but instead they see it as a criticism or judgment. But I also have to remember, I'm a therapist, someone who's coming to see me. To put this in the lightest form that I can for a picture, think of me like a hospital, and the person that's coming in is sick, and it's my job to help them to get better. So if they see me in a negative light and they turn away from me, or they don't like me, or stop seeing me, I just recently had someone, I explained why I couldn't take new clients, and she got upset and haven't heard from her. And my little feelings were hurt. I was like, all I did was tell you the truth. I don't understand what's going on. But guess what? I'm the hospital. So I have to recognize that sometimes, not every time, and not every person, but sometimes people that are coming to me, they might not necessarily be seeing clearly. Their view may be a little skewed. And it won't be all the time. But with some occasions, I have to remember that and not take it personally. But do your therapists get their feelings hurt when you don't come to them anymore? Yes, we do. Or then you drop off the face of the earth. We don't see you for a long while, and we think we've done something wrong, which probably we have, and you didn't like it, and so you don't return. But then something happens and you don't have anywhere else to go, so you call that person back up. Your therapist feels used. Will we take you? Yes, because it's our job. If we're able to take you, most likely we will. If we do not believe it was a good match, then we won't. So I'll give you an example. I've had a few clients that when you start having to tell clients about the billing part and how insurance did not cover whatever for whatever reason, and now they have to pay out of pocket, people don't like hearing that. But at the end of the day, I did my job. I provided a service and I need to be paid for that. Because guess what? Rent is real. When they want rent for your practice, they're serious. They want it every single month. So I have to collect it, right? I don't have a buffer person in order to do that for me. So I have to have the conversation when that person is before me. And people don't like that. So I've had a few people to really go off on me about that. And at the end of the day, go ahead and let them vent, get it out their chest, because that's what they need to do. And I still have to say, well, how will you be making that payment? Because I still have to collect it. And for those that don't, I unfortunately, just being honest, I'm a business too, right? I have to send them to collections. Why? Because that is what my biller requires of me in my contract with my biller, because we have to get paid. So when stuff like that happens, I've had a number of clients, I'd say about 4, that have actually called me afterwards and wanted to schedule an appointment with me. Nothing personally, but your therapist can't take you because you've shown to them, to some degree, there may be some provisions, but you've shown to them you're not going to pay the bill. They're going to provide the service and you won't pay it. Only correction that we have in that is that we take you on, we get payment up front. All right. So I'm telling you a lot of inside stuff, guys, but this is so you understand. Your therapists are trying to do their work. They're trying to do the right thing when it comes to you. But we get it. What we do is we talk to you in a way that helps you to see yourself or your issue clearer or better, or to change a direction, or to change how you're feeling or how you are thinking about something, and or how you may be responding in a way to someone or yourself. But we are also a business, and as wonderful as we are with helping you, we still have to get paid too, right? So that's just that. All right. So my last point that I want to identify with confessions of a therapist, you have to remember, your therapist is not a perfect person. Guess what? We have our own counselors. I have my own counselor that I see, because it's just things that sometimes you hear that you need to drop that off somewhere. So I've mentioned before, but I used to do group therapy for sex offenders. And remember I mentioned I was going to Rutgers and I was going to get certified with as a sex therapist. Well, when you're getting certified as a sex therapist, you have to see clients that are grappling with sexual issues. So therefore, I was conducting group therapy for people that were sex offenders. Let me just say, you have to listen to some things that are very difficult to receive. And you have to listen as if you hear this every day, all day, and it means absolutely nothing to you. But some of the things that you hear can make you cringe. And there were a number of days that I drove home crying from the stuff that I heard. But I also knew, dang, this is my job. So I had to pray on it. And I asked the Lord, how do I help here? Because this is a choice that they're going to have to decide that they don't want to be that individual anymore, whether they were people that were molesting someone, rapists, or in whatever degree that may be. I have to help them, but in the same sense, they have to want the help. And some of the things that I heard were not easy. So when I would go to my therapist, I'm dumping my stuff on my therapist. But one of the greatest pieces of advice I received was, don't bring your stuff home. And a benefit of me being single is that I didn't have someone that I had to release to, because therapists can't release their information to their family, their spouse. You have to keep that to yourself. Another reason why we have therapists. But I had the blessing to figure out how to not allow that to walk in the door with me when I return home. So I had a drive, about a 40-minute drive from my job to where I worked. And I would just release that on the road. And I called that my dumping ground. That was the dumpster. And I would just release that all on the road on my way home. A lot of days I cried with some of the stuff that I heard. A lot of days I prayed, like, Lord, you got to help me. And a lot of days I prayed, like, Lord, you have to help them. But I've done my part. There's God's box and there's my box. I do my part when I'm with my clients. And then when I'm not there, I trust that the other 23 hours of the day, the other 6 days of the week, God will do his part. Whatever that looks like, I've done my part. And I recognize that we as therapists, right? Remember I'm saying that therapists, we actually see our own therapist because we are dealing with our own stuff. And with me, for instance, If I am really at a point and place where I'm struggling with, why am I not yet married? What's wrong with me? I'm being honest. I've had those thoughts like, well, dang, Lord, how jacked up am I? But then the Lord will always remind me, you have had people to propose to you or tell you that they wanted to marry you. You've just thought about it. You recognize that was not my plan for you at that time, or that was not the person I would like for you to be with. And with that in mind, it jars me out of myself, getting me away from my negative, poor me, woe is me mode. And I remind myself of all the things that God has done for me. And I'm thankful for what he has allowed me to experience and what he has allowed me to have. And in knowing that, I'm thankful that there is a future and a plan for me to be married and to have a family. It's not, Scripture says that he will give you the desires of your heart. God is not a respecter of persons. He's done it for others. He'll do it for me. He's not going to dangle that before me. He would be an awful, horrible God to allow me to sit before couples every single day to never have that experience. I don't believe that's who he is when he knows that is our heart. And his word says he gives us the desires of our heart. So I know that it's for me, but sometimes I forget that and I get caught up in myself and I get caught up in my feelings. I know some people will say, and this to me, one person made this point and I was like, you are absolutely right. Some people will say that are single that, the holidays are very difficult because they are single and they have to go to various functions where, people are booed up or what have you. And I had someone say to me, I am never sad during the holidays. It is outside of the holidays where I'm sad, because during the holidays, there are people around at all times, parties and gatherings and families hosting stuff. So there are people around all the time. So that's when I'm at my fullest because I get to be around them. It's those other times where I'm by myself that are not so great. And they said, minus Valentine's Day, of course. And they make a great point. So I'm never really sad during the holidays because, again, I get to be with family and loved ones. But I have that glimpse, those moments where I'm like, well, darn, what would it be like if I were with my husband or my children? But I remember what God has for me is for me, which means no one is going to steal it. I'm never going to not have it. I just have yet to arrive to that place and point in life. Yet again, confessions of a therapist. So with me having those types of thoughts, being a marriage counselor, it does not take me away from my client, but it helps me to put things in perspective so that when I am working with my clients, I'm able to help them to see the richness in what they have and help them to feel thankful for what they have, because it allows me to hone in on the good things that they say that they don't hear themselves or their spouse or partner saying. And I collect that information and that data. And when they're being really hard on one another, I spit it back at them and be like, when you weren't paying attention, I was collecting this information. So case in point, I used to do pre-marital counseling. I was an independent contractor for this agency. And so they would send us out to different churches to have group premarital counseling. And at the beginning, we would have this icebreaker. It would be me and another therapist. We would tag team for the day or for the weekend, because it was a weekend thing that they had to do to complete the number of hours to get approved to be married in that church. So we would tag team. And so this one thing we would do would be an icebreaker, and it would be where you met your spouse, or how did you all meet? Name something you like about your spouse and something that you respect about your spouse, future spouse, should I say. And so I would write down secretly all of the things that they would be saying. So there's this one point in the weekend where they have to work through an issue. And it's not a big issue because we don't want them having big blown out arguments during premarital counseling, right? It's going to kill the vibe. So we have them work on something small, generally related to the wedding or what have you, wedding planning. So anyhow, we give them sometimes examples of what to choose from, what have you. So when they're finishing that, sometimes they're a little bit down. And so when I close up that point, I go back to that list that they identify what they liked about their future spouse and what they respected about them. And it jars them right back, and it makes them remember the good and now focusing on the bad. Remember that positives compared to the negatives. I just draw them right back into positive mode by reminding them the things that they say. And that's what I do in counseling. So when I could be down on myself and struggling with my own stuff or struggling with my own singlehood when I want to be married, I just remind my own self of the good that's in my life and the good that I'm doing, but also remind my couples so that they can take that energy. And I don't leave it for myself, but I do use it as a reminder right? It's a faith extender that God will do for me what he has done for them with that same love and joy. So I deposit that right back into them. Okay. So always keep in mind that even though your therapist is gifted in helping others with their problems, we too have our own problems that we have to work through. Some of us will see our own therapist to work through those things. And others, we are working through whether we see a therapist or not because we know how this whole thing works. We have to do the same things that we tell you to do in order to overcome our stuff. So because we have to do that same thing, guess what we're all doing together? We're all doing the work. And that's what every therapist wants. We want you to do the work because we know at the end of the day, if you do the work, things will change. Right now, I'm at a place where I'm getting ready to tell my clients I will see you in January. Right? I normally leave somewhere around the week before Christmas, but now I'm going to leave at the beginning of December, starting next week, and I'll be off for an entire month. So very thankful and blessed that I can do that. But we've all gotten to the place where they are seeing the love that they have, or they are seeing the positive in their world. So they're going to do the work while I'm away so that when we return, I'm able to see, well, what have you been doing? Have you been doing the work as you said you would? Because this is what you say is important to you. And as we know, everything that is important to us, we follow through with. We do. We stay on top of. And so as I close out Confessions of a Therapist, I just want you all to keep in mind, your therapist is a person. They deal with their own stuff. They have good and bad. They've just learned to manage and work through it. Your therapists, in more cases than not, are really called to what they do, and we enjoy what we do. It takes a lot to help people with problems, because what that means is you have to deal with problems every single day of your life, with work as well as in your own world. So sometimes it's a bit much, which is why we have to practice self-care, because we don't want to have secondary trauma. Secondary trauma is when we are dealing with your stuff because we've heard it and we're hurt just as much as you. Therapists take on your emotion. If you notice, if you come into a session angry, we help you to get rid of that anger, but we have to absorb that energy and then we have to release it before the next client. So therapists are good at shifting thoughts as well as emotions in order to help you to see, think, and feel differently about yourself, as well as responding differently to others. But we also have to take that energy as if we are the trash can and then dump it somewhere else. So we're dealing with problems. We're people too. We have feelings and we get hurt by some of the things our clients say as well. We sometimes want to be validated and appreciated and told that, hey, we're doing a good job, because you could have a great 2:00 session and a horrible 4:00 session and cause you to believe that you're not really a great therapist. It's all in perspective and how someone else will see you. But more importantly, it's about how we see ourselves. And we get up every day believing that we are doing what we are supposed to do. So with that being said, that is the celebration of the 100th episode of this podcast, which is Confessions of a Therapist. I enjoy all of my clients, whether I am counseling or coaching them. I look forward to what is really going to transpire in the days, weeks, and months to come, especially 2022. There are some great things in store for the podcast. So if you have not already, text "no dessert," and you want to text that number to 877-7LOVE-07. And it's a sistership where I really pour into you with self-love, empowerment, and encouragement to help you to fulfill as well as build your self-love journey. For those that are in relationships or married, you can text date night, and that's spelled DATENITE. And you'll text that to 877-7LOVE-07, when you'll get some support as well as tips and accountability and encouragement for everything related to love, marriage, and relationships. So don't forget, I also have a book called Get Naked. You can get that. It's available on Amazon. You can click the link in the description and it will take you there. As always, I have enjoyed you all. So of course, am I going to do my closeout, which is my like it, love it, leave it tips? I'm going to keep it simple. I like the fact that you all are enjoying the show. I love the fact that you all continue continue to return. And what I would leave out, nothing, because I enjoy being here. Is it hard work? It most definitely is, but it's work that is well worth it. And I believe that the seed that I'm depositing, the water that I am watering on those that are listening to other things that have been planted in their lives, I believe that the Lord will bring a harvest in both my life as well as yours. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you all. And thank you for celebrating the 100th episode of the Eros Meets Agape podcast. Don't forget to follow us. And we're available on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Snapchat, and Clubhouse. I know there's another one. I just can't remember. But everything on social media. And then as well, don't forget to rate and review us wherever you downloaded the show. Everyone, have a wonderful and happy Thanksgiving. Till next time, I'm your host, Dr. Sadia, helping you to give and receive the love you both want and need. Thank you for celebrating with me, everyone. Bye-bye.